Hello, this is the next bit. This There's not very much in this because what we would have done if we were in at school, we'd have been doing a little project related to this, and we'd be going out and taking some measurements and so on, and doing a bit of sampling. But alas, we cannot. So I'll just talk you through the kind of theory of this, which is, if you've done biology before, is pretty, you kind of know it anyway, even if you haven't. It's not particularly um, difficult to understand. We're just looking at various different abiotic factors. So this is the last bit of the first part of Unit 1, so measuring abiotic factors. And we'll go into a definition of abiotic factors in a minute, but what you need to do for this section of the course is be able to name at least 3 aquatic abiotic factors and name at least 3 terrestrial abiotic factors. And then the kind of important bit, I suppose, is describing the effect of abiotic factors on the distribution of organisms. And really, I think for this part of the course, the kind of what you should try and remember is, if you're sort of discussing sampling, it's just to try and use the kind of level of language that's in this and being able to talk about specific abiotic factors. If you're thinking about why you might see the results that you did, if you didn't see a particular invertebrate in a pond, that you could talk about, speculate about which abiotic factor could be having an effect. If it's near a factory or something like that, or there's pollution, if it's in shade. It's just, bring that language into your discussions about environmental science. So, put simply, abiotic factors, they are environmental factors that can affect the biodiversity of an ecosystem. So in National 5 biology, we tended to talk about non-living factors. So a slight change in language, we're talking about environmental factors, but it's the same kind of idea. So you can think about what these are on the right hand side here. You've got non-living environmental factors. We've got temperature, and that would be pH, and that would be light intensity. So all environmental, non-living. And you can go and have a look at that if you want. So that's through Glow, just search for abiotic factors. And this is how they are split. So this is our aquatic and terrestrial. So aquatic just meaning obviously in water, terrestrial on land. So aquatic, what you can measure is water flow rate. So water flow rate, you'll have, we talk about various animals that will prefer kind of still water. And if you've got beavers moving into areas, they tend to build dams, which changes that abiotic factor. They'll slow down the water flow rate to the benefit of other animals. Dissolved oxygen content is simply how much oxygen there is in the water. Biological oxygen demand, I'm going to leave that for just now because I'm going to talk about that in a bit more detail in a minute. Salinity is the level of salt. Tidal effects, just the tide coming in and out. pH of the water, and temperature, sort of self-explanatory. Terrestrial ones, you've got temperature, light intensity, edaphic factors. So that word edaphic, if you see that, it just means related to the soil. Slope, precipitation is rainfall, and then wind velocity, which is speed and direction. So biological oxygen demand, and quite often this is a definition that gets asked for, and I've seen exams, and this is the one that people tend to forget. So biological oxygen demand, or it's sometimes shortened as BOD, that is a measure of the dissolved oxygen used by something in water when decomposing organic material. So what do you think if you've got a living thing decomposing organic material? What is it going to be? It's microorganisms. So we're talking about bacteria or fungi here. So if you compare these two aquatic ecosystems, then the one on the right and the one on the left hand side, you would say that it has low biological oxygen demand. Okay, there's not a lot of dead material in there, and you've got a higher oxygen level. Okay, less of it is being used by the microorganisms. On the right hand side here, Don't know if there's a word that will be coming to any of you beginning with E. Eutrophication. Algal bloom is what you see here, and this would have high biological oxygen demand. So there's something has leached into this river. It could be fertilizer, something with high nitrate concentration, and it's led to these algae proliferating in number. As a result of that, they're eventually going to die. When they die, the microorganisms will move in, and the microorganisms take in lots of oxygen. The oxygen levels decrease within the river, and that means there's less for invertebrates, fish, whatever else, and it could reduce oxygen levels to such an extent that animals start to die and you lose biodiversity. So high biological oxygen demand, which means that there's more oxygen being used by microorganisms. Just a wee example of the effect in distribution. So here we've got pH tolerance, so what pH different living things can survive in and what you'll find there. So if you look at frogs, they can survive down to quite acidic conditions, pH 4.0, and they would be the only one of those particular species present down there. Whereas if you look up at 6.5, you'd find all of them, and as you kind of become more acidic, clams and snails and so on will tend to diminish in number. And that's really it for abiotic factors. So I thought I'd keep this wee bit in. If you've been in my class before, you know that I like this sort of 3-2-1 game. So you can pause this as we go through and see if you can work out what the answer is. So there's a kind of basic clue in 3 points, and then it gets easier as you go on. So I'm just looking for a sort of one-word answer or a phrase. So the first one for 3 points. I am an aquatic abiotic factor. 2. As I go up, biodiversity goes down. 1. I am a measure of the oxygen used in water by decomposing microorganisms. Now this has sort of lost its effect a wee bit because you know in normal circumstances I'd have been telling you about biological oxygen demand about a week ago, but it turns out this way I've been talking about it 2 minutes ago. So I'm hoping you got this one. So that is BOD, biological oxygen demand. Second one, I am a type of sampling. Or 2, the proportions of each habitat in an area must be known before you use me. Number 1, I am when the population is divided into strata or groups. So this one is stratified sampling. The strata at the end is this sort of giveaway there. Next up, I am an average. For 2 points, you put the data in order from smallest to largest before you calculate me. And for 1 point, I am the middle number in a data set. So that is a median. Number 3, I could not number 3, 3 points. I could involve analysing feces. 2, I could involve analysing DNA. 1, I am sampling which does not involve handling animals. So that is non-invasive sampling. For 3 points this time, I am a type of quantitative measurement. For 2, I require indicator species. 1, I am a measure of the level of pollution in a burn. What is this? Trent Biotic Index. Okay. And next, for 3 points, I'm a type of quantitative measurement. So, I mean, the point of this is to get you thinking, right? Okay, we study quantitative measurements. What are the different ones that we learned about? So we had Trent Biotic and density and things like that. 2 points. I involve capture, mark, recapture. For 1 point, I'm used to estimate a population's size. Correct answer, Lincoln Index. And this might be the last one. This is not the last one, so this possibly is. Right, 3 points. I'm a measure of biodiversity. So can you remember there was 3 right at the very start of this that we talked about? Can you remember what they were? 2 points. I am low when a dominant organism like grass is present. And for 1 point, I take into account species richness and relative abundance. Correct answer, species diversity.